Everybody, college basketball algorithm update from Monday, February 5th. Got a few hours before the game starts. There are 17 games today. Not a huge schedule, and of course that means there's not going to be a huge number of teams to choose from. Very briefly, for those who would just tune in, if you want the tea leaves or whatever, if you want the crux dynamic answer to the raw question of who does the algorithm think today has a better than 90% chance of winning the game, because we have put these teams in order by margin. And historically, and you've seen it be true over the last 3 days as I've been doing videos, but historically at this time of year, and in general, games that are over 20% margin, 90% of them win on average. And that's 7 teams today. And it's saying that you're going to go 6-1 or better on average. Like every day you can expect to go 6-1 or better. Of course, it won't happen every single day. It doesn't work that way, but it generally does over the long term. So teams that you are going to put on your list for, if you just play the 90% club every day, which has been profitable over the last 3 days, every single day. We'll see if it does again today. What are those teams? Well, I've set up another slicer here to go through every game because I'm going to show which teams they are, but I'm also going to show the rest of the list and what you might consider if you're going to play more games that are not part of the 90% club. But who's part of the 90% club today? Well, McNeese State is. However, I'm removing them, and I'm removing them for 2 reasons. One, their line is minus 1,800, which is unacceptable. Sometimes you have to put a filter on what the line is because it simply does not pay anything. If you hit them at minus 1,800, you get 6 cents on the dollar. So if you want to risk a big wager on a team to get 6% return on the game, they're not going to win every game. And here's the other reason why I'm removing them. They lost on Saturday as the number 4 pick of the day on a day that had 140 games. They were in the top top like 2% or 3% of teams to pick on Saturday, and they lost. So something is wrong with them. And we are absolutely not having them on the list of the 95% club or the 90% club today. They are off. I'm actually rooting for them to get upset because they just lost on Saturday. We'll see what happens. Norfolk State, are you on the list? Apparently you are. 32% margin. They're on the list. North Carolina Central, strength of schedule is worse. That's not a good number there, but they're home. That's good. But they're a 46% team, and they have a 24% margin. They're supposed to win. They're on there. South Carolina State, better strength of schedule. They're home. That's good. Coppin State, they're a bad team, though. Both these are really bad teams. It's a bad team versus a bad team. That's bad. The line is bad. But they're on the list. I can't say they're not on the list. They are. They're not injured to the point where we have to remove them for injury. So they're on the list. 22% margin. Yikes. Hope your bad team wins in a bad team versus bad team game, but they're on there. Bethune-Cookman, 21% margin, 29% team. Minus 118. They're on the road and their strength of schedule is worse. It's scary. But I have to say they're on the list because they are on the list. Kansas is on the list. They are a good team at an 80% team. This is a lot of strength here, better strength of schedule. Kansas is on the list. Southern is right on the nose at 20%. Is an underdog. They're a 42% team. They're on the road. Their strength of schedule is better. They have to be on the list. So the 90% club cuts off right here at Southern. So that is 6 teams. So what is your wager supposed to look like? Let's see here. If you want to spread, do you want to spread out a round robin with these terrible lines? Let's say you focus on one area of the round robin here. These are supposed to be gimme games at terrible lines. I hate to say that because not all of them win sometimes. Sometimes you get a loss up here. But they're supposed to win, and then so everything's supposed to win on here, but you'll generally go 5-1. So if you're generally going to go 5-1, you focus on the fours only. So just do 4-team combinations. You can win 4-1 on your money if you hit all 6. And if you lose, say, your best paying game in Southern, you still make a little bit of money. You have to go 5-1 to make a little bit of money here. I'm unfortunately, it's not a humongous payout. And so I think what you can expect, I mean, you can also spread this out. That's the other option here. See what that does. You might want to lower it down and just play the 3s. I'm thinking that is probably the better play here. So in this case, it pays 3-1. You lose the Southern game. You make 27%. And then what if you lose the Bethune game too? Then all of a sudden you're losing 61%. It's really tough. It's not a good payout. It's not a good payout, everybody. And that's because you're loading up with games that have terrible, terrible lines. But you're also trusting the algorithm. So probably I think that the sobering response to looking at today on a day that only has 17 games, folks, that's the problem. Is it only has 17 games. And I'd have to say that the problem on a day like today is there's just not a lot to choose from, and that payout is not that great. So those are the 6 teams, though. When you look further down the list, a couple things I want to mention is Eastern Washington looks pretty strong here at -205, even though they're on the road. They're a pretty powerful team as well. They've been playing well. Southeastern Louisiana's got a better strength of schedule, but these are some bad teams down here, but they are home, so they probably win that game too. Then you got some road underdogs that are scary. New Orleans probably wins against Houston Baptist, formerly Houston Baptist, now Houston Christian, at -235 because Houston Christian has some injuries too. But it's way down on this list. And then the one that I personally have been following a little bit is Miami of Florida. They have a good team and they had a bunch of people injured for a few weeks. Their injury number was really high. So somebody came back, or a couple people came back, and they're now supposedly healthy. That means they probably put up a really tough game against Virginia. And this +6 is a high quality pick down here. This is supposed to be a really close game that Miami barely wins. They're coming back healthy now. They probably cover 6 there. And that seems like a pretty strong pick. Idaho, Sacramento, toss up down here, even though they're an underdog, toss up with Howard, Delaware State. So when I mention teams, the algorithm straight up says to play, with the exception of McNeese State being thrown out of there like dishwater because of what they did on Saturday. It does result in these teams, which are really strong picks. And you probably, the sobering response, you probably go 5-1 on them, and you probably make about 20 to 30% on your money. And that's not all that glamorous, but at the same time, it's playing your wager to where the strength is. And so there really is a difference between gambling and doing what is mathematically sound wagering. It's not glamorous, but it also, there's a reason that it results in more profitability long-term, because you have to find winners when you're making round robin wagers, and you're punished for every loser. So you really want to have solid picks. And if you throw something where you add Eastern Washington, Southeastern Louisiana, Miami of Florida +6, and New Orleans, you lose 2 of these 4 down here because they're toss-ups anyway. And so you take a day which potentially could be 5-1 up here, and you turn it into a day that ends up being 6-3, which is not as good of a payout on a round robin for sure. You start losing 3 games on a 9-team round robin, you're going to find yourself lucky to be even and probably losing a little bit of money. So it's lessons in how important it is to stay at the top of the list here, but also how valuable a day is where you have 100 games, because you get so many teams on this list with a margin above 20% that you can really pick and choose between 20 different games, the top 7, 8 that you want, and have a high degree of profitability of getting those 90%ers correct and hopefully hitting all of them, which is what has happened in 2 of the last 3 days when I've attempted it. And the only reason, and it also happened with 10 teams yesterday, I just didn't bet all those 10 teams in my wager. So anyway, Good luck everyone on Monday. You can see there's some solid teams to play up here. And it stops at about Southern, and then you're gambling down here. All right. But Miami +6 seems like a pretty good gamble, in my opinion. Good luck. May all your picks be winning.